Felt so good.
And he would have just gone on and on kicking him.
But Mandy Moore came out with a hit album called Pulling Tyrion Off the King.
What up, and welcome to another episode of Brotherhood Without Manners, your favorite full spoiler reread podcast of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series, currently reading A Clash of Kings. I'm Nate. Joining me as always is my big-headed brother, Zach.
You don't know me. What up?
They do know you now have a big head.
Well,
you grew into it. You had a big head.
I did have a big head.
Not anymore.
I used to ping pong off shit, too.
It did. It was because we pushed it off.
I would challenge you to find someone who's cracked their head open more times than this guy. What up, and welcome back if you've listened before. If you haven't listened before, we are full spoiler. We will ruin A Song of Ice and Fire for you, or at least some cool little theories that don't get talked about as much, because we discuss the little things.
And we make up ones that are completely debunkable, and we throw those at you.
And for some reason, people really seem to enjoy it. I think it's has a lot to do with the quarantine, because it's keeping people inside and needing to consume content.
Regardless, we appreciate it all.
Yeah, and so at the top of the show here,
we do want to give a big thank you to our newest Patreon patron. The newest member of Brotherhood Without Manners, Dr. June. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you joining so much. As we mentioned on the Patreon, we are looking at some extra things to throw at the higher tiers. But
we do have the remaining sample chapters coming at you very soon. We've been working on getting that done.
Yeah.
Busy times during this quarantine, as Nate is deemed an essential employee and currently still has to work. So
all day, every day.
It's some interesting stuff. But June, thank you for subscribing. Hope you're enjoying the bonus content. We have more coming out for you. And
that being said,
yeah.
Last episode, if you joined us, we were reading Dany 3, only her third chapter, as she was making her way through Qarth once again. She had been denied by the Pureborn.
Dany's story, in contrast to everything else, feels like a fucking soap opera. Like, just some crazy, wild shit you would watch on, like, Westeros television, because everything in Qarth feels fake
now
and
I'm
flowery.
Picturing, like, a lot of, like, her big moments.
Well, like
and,
Zaro,
like,
the way
where
Zaro
all of a sudden
acts.
It's like, dun, 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 and, like, zooms in on Zaro's face, and then, like, cuts to the fucking commercial.
Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, so she got a bunch of bullshit from Zaro.
Yeah, she went to the Pureborn to ask them for help. They just wanted to see her dragons because they were on some amusement for the afternoon. Zaro begs her for marriage.
But he wants the exact same thing.
Yeah,
he wants her dragon.
Jorah later reveals to her that, if you marry him, the Qartheen have a tradition where each the husband and the wife get to ask one of the worldly possessions of the other, and it can't be denied. And Jorah points out, a dragon will make Zaro a king. One ship isn't going to do much for your fleet. So, and Jorah's been untrusting of the whole fucking situation from day one.
Which, as much as we hate this creeper book Jorah, he's on to something.
And we also get the to go west, you must go east from Quaithe, and that whole nonsense, which we know plays pretty heavily into Dany's.
Yeah, so she wraps up her third chapter by sending Jorah out to set up a time with Pyat Pree for her to visit the Warlocks.
What up, Warlocks?
And so that'll be cool to jump into. But this episode is about Tyrion 10. And so last we saw Tyrion, where was he at? Oh, he was getting praised by his sister, or was that chapter?
Yeah,
where they had learned...
my boy was at a council meeting getting news of Renly's death,
right.
And they were discussing sort of what to do with that, because a lot of the men went over to Stannis, but Loras Tyrell, Randall Tarley, Florence didn't. They all did. Some went immediately to Stannis. A couple. So there's a lot of armies that are currently not.
Most of those ones are at Bitterbridge.
So they discussed who, because obviously someone should go down and try to make an alliance. And it was discussed Tyrion maybe, and
Cersei even, but it was settled on Littlefinger, and so he was given way more power than that man should ever have been given, and he is sent on his way. And then Tyrion is, does he go visit Shay, or I forget how that chapter ends, to be fair. Varys, he gets a visit with?
Yeah, he sees Varys.
I got a new notebook, and so I don't have that chapter's notes in front of me right now, because, so sorry, Zach's flipping through his...
Oddly enough, I forget the end. Yeah, they send off...
Is that the whole end?
Cersei's being pretty crazy. Yeah, no, Cersei's still, that's what it is. That's how it is. Cersei's asking about how his chain is coming, and she's still being creepy and nice to him. And so he sends Bronn to watch her. He thinks she's up to something, and he doesn't like surprises, and that's where we kind of leave it.
Right.
So this chapter, we pick up with Myrcella's getting pieced out, and young as she was, she never wept, and Tyrion thinks that Myrcella Baratheon was a princess born and a Lannister despite her name. So, it's college day. Myrcella's going off to college. She is, and
everyone's seeing her off.
Saying goodbye.
Tommen is a mess.
Which, I love Tommen.
Poor little Tommen, man. I wish he could have brought a kitten.
And this is when she almost loses it, Tyrion notes, is when her brothers are saying goodbye. That's when it's like, oh, shit.
But mostly Tommen. But she comforts him.
Well, only Tommen. Joffrey.
Yeah, Joffrey's a little cunt. Yeah. Fuck you, Joffrey.
And he said that she was as much Jaime's blood as Cersei. He had to remind himself of that. And, But she knew the proper words and how to say them, and she said them with courage and dignity. She's playing her part. She's doing the lady, which is very similar to Sansa.
I really hate how I feel like, and granted, we do get a lot of her in the Dorne story parts, so it isn't too awful, but it's just, I wish we could have gotten more Myrcella early on, because she's not stupid. She's proper.
She's the Lannister Rickon.
And she's
she
this wild card.
And then we check in a couple years later with her.
And so I just would like to see how present she was, with Cersei as her mother, and when
I think that's what's fun about these Rickon Myrcella is now that we're getting them later in Feast and with all the Dorne storyline and the Skago storyline. Who are they? How much of their parents' influence do they have? How much did they listen to? Does Myrcella, I know people hate the show, but as in the show, Myrcella had an inkling Jaime was her father. Does she in the book, or is she ignorant to that? Like, it's a whole, who are these people? How much did these kids pick up on before?
And in the books, depending on how much time has passed when we next see Rickon, he may have been raised for as many years by Osha as he was the Starks themselves, and how much wildling has she instilled. While granted, I think she would also be maintaining that northern style for her, because she's not a savage. She's a badass bitch.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Tyrion looked down upon the Sea Swift.
Which is the boat that Myrcella will be on, and he was currently up on Robert's Hammer is the name of the official boat, but the main strength of Myrcella's escort, and it will be alongside the Lion Star, Bold Wind, and Lady Lyanna.
Now, fuck you, Cersei.
I just thought it was kind of cool how, half of those could technically be almost tied to the north, with Rob's Hammer, Robb Stark,
Bold Wind.
Bold Wind is so close to Grey Wind, and just that.
Lady
Lyanna is the obvious one. But I just thought that was interesting. And then you have Lion Star, the one outsider, and so that was just
Tyrion
strange.
Is not so thrilled at using more ships from their already much depleted fleet, which a majority left when Stannis bounced for Storm's End. But Cersei would have nothing less for her precious little princess, which Tyrion thinks might actually be wise, because if Myrcella's intercepted before she gets to Sunspear,
then there's
the
no
whole
Dornish
alliance collapses.
And so it's funny that he's making an excuse for Cersei here, where, not that is a bad idea necessarily, but he's so quick to defend her.
Yeah.
And he just immediately was like, she's being way overprotective, which we know Cersei is and would be. And so is it too much, do you think?
No, I think Cersei's obviously only doing it because it's her daughter, but I think Tyrion has the right of it. Like, they need to protect her, because if Stannis learned that Myrcella was sailing out, as Tyrion later thinks, absolutely, I think he'd send someone out to try to grab her.
So I think it's interesting there, right after it does, we get this little hint on Doran Martell.
Fuck yes, we do.
And about how
everything hinges on Myrcella actually reaching.
And even if she does, he's not going to attack.
No.
He will just put his troops in place to defend on behalf of the Lannisters.
When she reaches Braavos, he had sworn to move his strength to the high passes.
If Stannis aggresses on one of his towns or villages, he will defend it, but he will not actually even then send his troops actively out. Yeah. And so I like how subtle it is that if you don't know Doran Martell, you don't know what that even means. Oh, okay, so is he a fucking son of a bitch? He's not giving anybody help or anything? You don't get what kind of a level that Doran's playing at, where he's... And granted, that's Dorne in a nutshell, but at the same time, any hint at Doran Martell is awesome.
Doran has shit he's waiting for, shit he's waiting on, so he's purposely not trying to throw his chips in with anyone at the moment. But he also thinks that Stannis is not so great a fool as to openly attack Dorne or anywhere near Dorne, but some of his Lord Bannermen might be. Yeah, and he kind of makes a mental note to like ruminate on that, think on that a little later, see if we can't provoke some of the Bannermen. But
he goes over the captain's orders quickly. Essentially, they're going to hug the coast until Crackclaw Point.
Crackclaw.
Yeah, and then sail straight to Braavos, avoiding Dragonstone.
Do not
completely
sail in sight of Dragonstone.
Obviously, I think that goes without. I mean, he should say it, but it goes without saying.
Like that's just like an adrenaline junkie. Like, let's just skirt by my old boy's place.
I was gonna say it sounds like let's go play ding dong ditch at the old man, but this is the old man that has TNT by the door.
They see us!
Go!
Yeah, if happened upon by enemies, destroy them if you're able. Or
if it's a single enemy, destroy them. If it's a fleet, then
the Sea Swift should be able to outrun any pursuers, while the other King Robert's hammer and the others
will kind of intercept and defend and hold them off. So Aerys Oakheart has been assigned as her sworn shield.
Poor Aerys.
Going
to his death.
That's it. And it's unfortunate because he is a badass character. He gets
going to the Viper's nest.
He gets swept away by love. Love.
Infatuation, I'd say. I don't even
Makes
think Sir
the world
Aerys
go
loves
round.
Her. I mean, he does. He tells himself he does.
No, he's obsessed, and
Arianne plays him.
It's sad because he was always nice to Sansa as well. We do know that he was. Yeah. He's always been one of pretty great guy.
Yeah, he actually kind of upholds the knightlyhood to the best he can in King's Landing. But Tyrion thinks that if Stannis had heard of this sailing, now would be the absolute perfect time to send his fleet down Blackwater Rush.
And he kind of sends up these little prayers, just give me like fucking 2 weeks.
He looks up at the horizon. He's like, nope, no sails. Cool, we good.
All I need is 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And my I think he says the wench specifically of the chain that he's been working on is what's almost finished. But maybe I misread that, and I wasn't really.
Oh no! He says it will all be done another fortnight.
Well, I think that they just need that winch finish.
Yeah, the winch, the chains, it'll all be good. But Myrcella down below is kneeling before the High Septon to receive her blessing, and this long-winded fat fuck just goes on. And Tyrion is just like, all right, fucking wrap it up.
Yeah, I like that he mentions he's more long-winded, because we haven't had this speech or anything like that from the High Septon.
I like that we can't hear him.
Right.
It's just words are wind type thing.
And the fact that he says that he's even more long-winded than Pycelle. And, we go in hard on... I mean, granted, we can't stand Pycelle, but we go in hard about how much he just fucking rambles on. Mm-hmm. And yet, Myrcella's still there doing her fucking duty, man. Yeah. Listening to it, regardless of how faithful she is or isn't. Who knows? Again, that's one of the things with her. We don't know if she's...
But she's Sansa-ing it. She knows what's expected of her, so she's doing it. So Tyrion begins to set off of Robb's hammer. He could feel the unkind eyes on him as the rocking galley had made his waddle much worse.
Yeah, so this already... he's attributing it to the waddle and everything, but this is the first hint that the bread riots are coming right now.
Yeah, because he thinks none dared giggle, but he does think they do not love me. Small wonder, I'm well-fed, and ugly, and they are starving. And so, that's sort of the first bit of this insolent, just staring at him openly. And Bronn escorts him over to Cersei and her sons, and Cersei ignores him, preferring to charm Lancel with her smiles.
Good old Lancel. Lancel, fetch me my stuff.
But Tyrion thinks, I know your secret, Cersei.
Yeah, so Lancel, as we know, has turned spy for Tyrion.
Yeah.
And so he's revealed that she's been making trips to the Sept.
Awful pious.
To, just pray and pray
for
away.
Stannis, the struggle against Stannis, make Stannis go away and protect this holy city. Well, then she's going and getting boned.
She's dipping out of the church, and she is meeting up with the Kettle Blacks.
Yeah.
All of them.
In truth,
bang.
After a brief call at the Great Sept to, make the appearances and all that fun stuff, she would don a plain traveler's cloak and visit a certain hedge knight, Sir Osmond Kettleblack, and his equally unsavory brothers, Osney and Osfrid. Lancel had told him all of this, and Cersei meant to use the Kettle Blacks to buy her own force of Selly swords.
So while you're currently looking up a selection, I wanted to just pull back right before that, where it mentions what Cersei is wearing, because she's wearing that mentions her, what she's wearing and the color of her eyes.
Yeah.
Just her eyes being as green as the rope of emeralds around her slim white throat, and I only mention it because in the Catelyn chapter previous our most recent Cat chapter, Cat mentions to Brienne that she would like nothing more than to come into King's Landing and put her hands around Cersei's milky white throat and just choke her till her face turns black. And I just thought it was interesting for Martin to include the mention of her neck and throat in the same way that...
Do you think there's significance to Cersei being, like, literally shrouded in the color of wildfire almost constantly?
It's pretty cool.
Like the emerald green or the jade green that she's always fucking...
Maybe it has something...
I know her eyes are...
Well, I just feel like the fact that her eyes are, as well as the colors that she likes to wear, could definitely reflect kind of that... wildness, that out of control, because wildfire is so unpredictable and so outrageously volatile that it has that kind of poisonous and acidic nature. Like it's definitely, I think, helps to lead us to that, and so I think Martin does it on purpose. Yes.
Yeah. So, as for Cersei
Kettle Blacks,
meaning to do what she does, I just wanted to read this bit. Tyrion thinks, well, let her enjoy her plots. She was much sweeter when she thought she was outwitting him. The Kettle Blacks would charm her, take her coin, and promise her anything she asked. And why not, when Bronn was matching every copper penny, coin for coin? Amiable rogues, all three. The brothers were, in truth, much more skilled at deceit than they'd ever been at bloodletting. Cersei had managed to buy herself 3 hollow drums. They would make all the fierce booming sounds she required, but there was nothing inside. It amused Tyrion to no end. So Cersei's gone and got herself in a fuck triangle with 3 brothers, of whom Tyrion is currently paying. And then we know later on that these Kettle Blacks end up being her downfall with the High Sparrow.
The High Sparrow gets a hold of him. She thinks, that they're going to be able to send him to the wall. She straight up starts like a relationship with, I think, Sir Osmond. One of them, where, like... Jaime's gone, Lancel's a sparrow, Osmond,
and she's got no one, so she's fucking them. And she begins to like trust them, and this is the start of that, where she thinks immediately
fucking Moonboy.
And we get right here that Tyrion's aware that the Kettle Blacks could be her downfall at any point. And he even uses fucking Sir Osmond later in Jaime's little litany of Moon Boy for all I know, all that fun stuff. I know. The Lion Star and the Lady Lyanna push off and set off, followed by the Sea Swift, and Tommen just starts sobbing while Joffrey's a little cunt to him.
Aww.
And it's sad. But
fuck you,
Sansa
Joffrey.
Shits all over Joffrey, being men cry all the time. Like, it's no big deal.
How that happened was because Joffrey looked at him and was like, cut that shit out. Princes don't cry. And Sansa was like, well, actually, in history, Aegon IV and this guy and these 2 brothers, when they killed each other on the field, and like in all these songs and stories that are well known, and he's like, yo, I'm gonna make you cry by having Sir Meryn fucking kick the shit out of you if you don't shut your fucking mouth.
Tyrion glances at Cersei to see her reaction to him being just a fuck to Sansa, but she's too engrossed in something Balon Swan is telling her.
Now, he kind of makes an aside here, is she blatantly
Can she truly be so blind as to what he is, he wondered.
Yeah, so...
No. She knows. She's choosing to ignore it.
Damn.
Yeah, she's choosing to, it puts her in a small modicum of power that she couldn't have if her son wasn't king. She's Queen Regent. I mean, she's got the second most amount of power, equal to the hand, easily at this point. She's equated herself, given herself. So, yeah, I think she knows what it is. She's just at this point, what can I do? So I might as well. I think absolutely she knows and is just being blatantly choosing to ignore it. But We learn here that Tyrion had carefully chosen each ship and the crew, though all the info he got was based on Varys. And he thinks that Varys himself is untrustworthy.
Yeah, he thinks he trusts Varys way too much, and he needs to work on getting his own informers. And he's
valid. I mean, you can try.
And then the hard part, and even he kind of notes it, is like, but who the fuck can he find that he can even trust? There's nobody. So how do you find informants without, buying them from across the sea, personally?
I mean, you found Bronn. Bronn seems to be pretty
buying worthy. I mean, and that's what I think he forgets, is that technically that's all any of these informants are paid coin, hired coin. Even Varys with Illyrio, like the boys that he has trained and shit, they're all bought and paid for.
Well, yeah, he's got Bronn because he told Bronn, if anyone ever pays you to sell me out, I'll pay better.
Yeah.
And so... But there had also been no word from Littlefinger, which could mean everything or nothing, and more than likely that Mace Tyrell balked at the proposition and wasn't having it.
Yeah, because Varys had hinted, maybe Littlefinger had died, and Tyrion's like, yeah, there's no way in fuck that's a thing.
Yeah.
So, no, and yeah, it's most likely, because he even says, or thinks, if I was Mace Tyrell, I would sooner have Joffrey's head on a pike than his cock in my daughter. And the image of Joffrey is the funniest fucking thing to me. Because I just can't pick. It's fucking ridiculous. It's wild and outrageous, and it doesn't make any kind of sense.
Cersei declares it's time to go, so Bronn helps Tyrion mount up. We learn that Pod would have come, but Bronn is much more intimidating, and shit is hot in the city right now.
Yeah.
And so they set off. The streets were lined with the city watch.
You know what the subtle taking I got from that is? Tyrion loves Pod. He wants to keep him safe in the Red
Well,
Sea.
yeah, I mean, Pod's going to be fucking useless out here.
He wants to keep him safe.
The streets were lined with the city watch holding back the crown. Bywater is in front, followed by Aron Santagar and Balon Swan.
Aron Santagar, Master at Arms.
Yep. Joffrey followed, and Sansa was by his side, with the Hound and Sir Mandon Moore flanking the couple. Sansa is wearing a hairnet of moonstones, which is just drawing attention to the fact that she likes hairnets, I guess.
With stones in them?
Yeah.
Well, because she's going to have...
I'm aware of that.
So, for our,
beating it over the fucking
uncultured listeners.
Uncultured.
They just haven't read it yet. We're full spoiler. It's drawing attention to the fact that she wears the stone-filled hairnets that the poison's going to be hidden in. That's the word I'm looking for. Hidden in. So anyway.
Next in line was Tommen sniffling with Sir Preston Greenfield.
Then, get that boy a kitten, for fuck's sake.
Then Cersei riding with Lancel, just having a grand old time, protected by Meryn Trant and Boros Blount. Tyrion falls in with his sister, and after them came the High Septon in his litter, in a long tail behind them, including Horace Redwine, Lady Tonda, and her daughter Lawless, Jalabar Zoe, and Giles Rosby. So... Yeah. Lots of significant names, which noted because we're about to get the fucking bread riots and lose a bunch of those people.
Yeah, so Martin does a really good job to show how many people are here. I think it's in an attempt to make this whole thing feel that much more claustrophobic.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's so many things going on all at once and names being tossed your way, and it's intended to kind of unsettle, unbalance you as a reader.
Put you in it where you're like, fuck, I don't know, like, Tyrion's just looking around, like, this is what he sees.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah. And so, the crowd watched them with dull resentment as they passed, and Tyrion doesn't like the feel of this one little bit.
Not one speck.
Bronn has sellswords scattered in the crowd to help stop trouble before it started, but Tyrion isn't sure it would help any with the crowd this size.
And he also wonders if Cersei had dispatched the Kettleblacks to do anything with the same sword. Yeah, the same kind of stuff.
So they begin climbing up Aegon's high hill, and a man begins crying out, "Hail Joffrey, all hail!" But for every man that took up the call, 100 kept their silence. Yeah. And Cersei laughs at something that Lancel says to her.
So before that, it's I just like the way that Tyrion, feeling the tension and seeing it all, compares it, that the Kettleblacks and his sellswords that Bronn were put into the crowd. He says that if the fire was too hot, you could hardly keep the pudding from scorching by tossing a handful of raisins in the pot. And he's basically saying there's nothing that those sellswords could do right now if we get fucking...
If this the wrong way, yeah.
Which is what it's doing. And so I think that's important to show that, like, he was making attempts to kind of keep things simmered, but if they really want to, then there's nothing he can do.
Yeah.
And that's fucked.
So yeah, Cersei giggles at something Lancel says, but Tyrion thinks it's feigned. Even she couldn't be oblivious to the unrest, which I think also harkens back to Joffrey thing,
yeah. And this is more of her, it's a power play. It's her showing that she's strong enough to not be scared of what's happening by these common folk.
A wailing woman forces her way between the guards and in front of the king and his companions, holding the corpse of her dead baby above her head. Blue and swollen, grotesque, but the real horror was the mother's eyes. And Joff looks as if he means to ride her down.
But Sansa intervenes.
Again, Sansa slaying it.
Yeah, because she saved Dantos in the same fashion. And so he almost immediately reaches into a coin pouch and just throws... Yo, Savage of the fucking year right here. He just throws the coin that bounces off the corpse of the baby and lands on the ground, rolls away from the person whose baby he just threw a coin at, and it gets fought over by a bunch of random dudes instead.
Yeah.
So basically all he did was chuck a coin at a kid that's dead just to say, fuck you, lady.
The mother never blinked.
No.
Like, she's ready to rip his
Nothing to do with the
throat
money
out,
for her. And Cersei... hollers out instead. Ignore her, Joffrey. She can't be helped now. And, it triggered the fucking lady. Triggered.
Yeah, the queen's voice cut through
the woman's... She just drops her baby.
Ravaged wits. Whore! She shrieked. Brotherfucker! Kingslayer's whore, brotherfucker! And her child dropped from her arms, which, if it's that swollen and grotesque, it kind of tended to pop.
It definitely sloshed onto the ground.
Yeah, it scattered across.
It was not a pleasant-looking thing.
Tyrion didn't see who threw the dung, only heard Sansa's gasp and Joffrey's bellow, and when he looked, Joffrey was wiping the brown filth from his cheek, with more matted in his hair and across Sansa's legs. And Joffrey immediately loses his shit, demanding to know who did it, offering gold, demanding the man who threw it. And people immediately he was over there.
Up in the roofs, up there, over there.
And he tells Sandor to go and bring him. So obedient, the Hound gets off his horse, but there's no getting through this.
Something I really want to point out here is that the Hound hasn't taken his sword out.
No.
I just wanted to make that known right now.
Tyrion smells disaster and begins telling the Hound to leave it. Just fucking stop.
Don't worry about it. Like, this is not the time.
Joffrey bellows out and tells him to just cut through them all.
No, I want
bring me his head.
Yeah, but he gets drowned out before he can even finish.
Yep.
Because and Tyrion will avenge this part, obviously, but people lose it at hearing "cut them fucking down."
Yeah.
Especially when they see that the Hound has just dismounted. People know who the Hound is, what he's capable of. Everybody knows the fucking Hound. It's just how the world works here. He's the fucking Hound. Cut them down? Yo, chill the fuck out.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane.
That's the dumbest thing to yell right now. Yeah, as possible. A rolling thunder of rage and fear and hatred engulfed them, and their shouts of bastard and monster for Joffrey, whore and brotherfucker for Cersei, and freak and half-man for Tyrion, even cries of King Robb the Young Wolf, and Stannis, and Renly. And the crowd surges forward, the gold cloaks struggle to hold the line, stones and dung are flung.
And the crowd kind of gathers their voices as one and settles on a common phrase, bread.
Yeah, bread.
I like that he said that King Bread triumphed over all, which is, I think it's a very talked about statement that King Bread, because we're reading Clash of Kings, and we have the Five Kings, the War of the Five Kings, but it never gets talked about King Bread, man. And when it comes to the common folk, the small people, they want food. It's survival. They don't give a fuck whether it's Joffrey, Stannis, they clearly don't. Bread triumphs over all. Starvation and survival is going to fucking beat any of these idiots in royalty.
Yeah.
And I think that's just very important, especially coming from the Brotherhood Without Manners, and we fight for the small folk.
Yeah. Tyrion rides up to Cersei and tells her to the castle now, and Cersei gives a curt nod as Lancel unsheathes his sword, and ahead, Sir Bywater is roaring commands, and a hand grabs Joffrey until Sir Mandon slash and parts the hand from the wrist.
Yeah.
And Tyrion just shouts, "Ride," slapping Joffrey's horse.
Yeah, because Joffrey's just riding in circles like a dipshit because he's panicking because he doesn't know how to rule or what to do in a situation. At least Fagon would have handled some business here. Grabbed Sansa, pulled her onto his horse, and like fucking galloped away gallantly.
Bronn keeps pace with him. 3 gold cloaks went down under the surge, and the crowd pressed forward even more. The Hound had vanished behind them.
Yeah, so I meant to mention also, because I brought it up with the Hound not pulling out his sword, the first person who wasn't like a gold cloak with the spear out kind of fending people off was Lancel.
Mm-hmm.
Lancel was the first person to fucking take his sword out, which is when people really started getting fucking savage, I think.
Yeah.
Was because that guy took out the sword. I mean, yeah, obviously Joffrey incited everything by being little cunt Joffrey, but I think Lancel's the one that made it the most violent when he pulled that out.
Aaron Santagar, they see, was pulled from his saddle, and Sir Balon drew his sword and began just slashing left and right. And suddenly the madness is behind them. A line of spearmen held the gate to the Red Keep, and they parted to let the king's party pass, and they fucking book it through.
Yeah, and as they gallop in, we're going to gallop into our small council meeting.
So fucking stupid. All right, we'll be back. What up, small counselors?
What's going on? So we have a lot to go over, actually, this small council, so we're going to get right into it. We have a lot of people to talk about. I wanted to briefly touch base with those on our YouTube, who, because this is our Tyrion episode, just to mention them on our last, or maybe it was a couple Tyrion episodes, and we might have even mentioned it before, but Amelia and Stephanie over there, we were all kind of chatting about the last one. Amelia was discussing some more Jane Poole stuff, and it was really good conversation. Go read about it if you're, super curious. And then Stephanie made a funny comment because it will kind of correlate with, Joffrey. But on Westeros Bachelor, it's agreed that Joff will give his final rose to the Rose of Highgarden, Marjorie Tyrell. And that made me chuckle. So I just wanted to give you guys a shout out and thank you guys. We appreciate all your comments over there on the YouTube.
Yeah, we also did get an email from Sarah, and Sarah gave us some inductees for previous chapters. Sarah's inductees from Cat 5, Edmure, because A, he let the small folks inside his castle, and B, fuck Mama Stark. I love her character, but during this reread, can't ignore how entitled she is. Yeah, useless mouths.
So nobody will fault you for Edmure, because Zach will probably just say, well, at least it wasn't Renly. And I guess I don't like Edmure. But, you can have your inductee for whoever the fuck you want it to be.
And as for Danny 3, please just let me induct Jorah the Peeper. So thank you for those inductees.
Appreciate it as always. And we love the lovely comments that you added in there, that make us think, and I have to do research while Zach just knows the shit because he knows shit.
Yeah, so if you would like to send us an email, you can do so at withoutmannersbrotherhood@gmail.com.
Yes.
As Sarah did, and you can send us inductees, whatever you want to, really, there.
Yeah, so we also do get a lot of little posts and comments and updates and all our new episodes over on Facebook, facebook.com/brotherhoodpodcast. However, on Facebook, deep in the underground of Riverlands area, where it's wet and foresty. What's that look for? He's looking at me like I'm crazy. This is wild. That's, I guess, the crazy look of like the owls in the Riverlands in the area where we have a secret Facebook group, and you can get access to that by subscribing to our Patreon, patreon.com/withoutmanners, just like our new great friend James did. James Parrish. Hey, I didn't mess it up. James, thank you, James.
Yeah, James, thank you for subscribing to our Patreon along with June.
And yes, Dr. June.
Dr. June.
Dr. June. Archmaester June, actually, is. And so we now have our first Archmaester here in the Brotherhood.
That's good to have.
So, fuck yeah, Archmaester June. We appreciate both of you for becoming new patrons who get access to the Winds of Winter sample chapters. We only have 2 left for those to come out. We're working on them. We promise everybody. And then we will be working on some character analysis and a lot of good fun stuff in the works that we're kind of planning to record and get at you. So thank you guys for being our patrons. We love you, and we will keep pushing out Patreon
you can become
content.
Did we do it?
We did that, yes. Lastly, we didn't mention our Twitters. I'm fairly active on Twitter at Manners Without, which is also the Instagram. And Zach is over on Twitter.
Carstark92.
At Carstark92. We have all sorts of ways you can rate and review and subscribe. We appreciate them all. They're very helpful right now over on Podchaser. Meals on Wheels is getting donations for every review left over there. Otherwise, you can go to ratethispodcast.com/brotherhood. That will give you a spot where you can just go to whichever one's most convenient for you. Lastly, we do have a Stitcher code for Stitcher Premium, 1 month free. Use code Brotherhood, and that'll get you a month's free trial of Stitcher Premium.
Wham, bing, bam.
And we will let you get back to the fucking bread riots, yo.
Bread riots, motherfucker. King bread?
King bread? I like it.
So, Tyrion doesn't recall dismounting. He's kind of in this crazy haze of holy shit. But Cersei, Tommen, and Lancel ride through the gates behind him, followed by Ser Boros and Ser Meryn, who are pretty bloodied and tattered.
Yeah, so Manon was kind of helping Joffrey dismount when they came rolling through, and it's good to see Tommen came in. You know, he's not all super stressed, anything like that.
Ser Balon rode in helmetless. Horace Redwine brought in Lady Tonda, who was just flipping shit about her daughter Lawless, who had been knocked from the saddle and left behind. Lord Giles stammered out about seeing the High Septon spilled from his litter and the crowd just falling over him.
Yeah, and Jalabar Joe thinks that Preston Greenfield turned around to go and help the Septon, but he's not really sure. And you know what? I don't think it's technically Jalabar Joe's job to be protecting nobody, so good on you, Jalabar. You're still alive, bro.
Tyrion's dimly aware of a maester hurrying up and asking if he's hurt, but he pushes his way over to Joffrey and just slaps the shit out of him.
He slaps the crown off that little bitch's head.
And then shoves him, sending him sprawling.
How's it feel to get fucking... What kind of king gets fucking pushed on the ground by a damn dwarf? You fucking bitch.
Yeah, Joffrey's whining. They were traitors. They called me names and attacked me. And Tyrion says, so you set your dog on them? You spoiled, witless little boy. You've killed Clegane and who knows how many others. Yet you make it through unscathed. Damn you. And then he starts to kick him.
And then he kicks him, man. And
it felt so good.
And he would have just gone on and on kicking him.
But Mandy Moore came out with a hit album called Pulling Tyrion Off the King. And it's platinum.
And then he got backup vocals done by Bronn, who comes over and pulls Tyrion out of Mandon Moore's
Cersei kneels over her son as Ser Balon restrained Lancel. Restrained Lancel from what? Is he playing it up?
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's got his sword unsheathed. He's fucking heading towards Tyrion like you know Lancel is, because look how fucking...
Yeah, but he's Tyrion, so it's an act?
Oh, yeah. And he's... I mean, because everybody expects him to puff up. He's not doing anything. Hold me back, bro. Hold me back, bro. And then nobody's holding him back, so he's like bumping into them like they're actually he's just being a dipshit. But
so Tyrion wrenches free of Bronn and asks how many others are still out there, and Lady Tonda mentions her daughter again, and then Ser Boros says that Ser Preston's not returned, nor Aaron Santagar. The young squire Tyrek Lannister, a.k.a. Wet Nurse, and
finally the Stark girl.
And Sansa. And Tyrion's like, fuck, if she's dead, then Jaime's as good as dead. So Cersei tells Boros and Meryn to go and find the girl, and Ser Boros is like, well, your grace, we would, but our cloaks might incite the mob. And Tyrion had stomached all he cared to. He's done with the fucking bullshit.
Yeah,
the games that they play, they all play. He's done with it, and he says, others take your fucking cloaks. Take them off if you're afraid, you oaf. Find Sansa Stark, or I will have Shagga split your head in two to see if there's anything more than black pudding inside.
Yeah, Boris, his feathers are ruffled. He is not a happy person.
Bronn shoves Tyrion behind him.
Yeah, because Boros fucking he pulls his sword out. You won't call me ugly, you like you. And Bronn's like, "What up, bro? What you got, huh?"
Cersei tells him that he'll do as he's bid. And
which is she just turns on him immediately, like he's the hand of the king, because he thinks. Am I going ahead to the other part?
No, you're good.
Let me find my. Oh, that's way ahead. There we are. But she says he's the hand of the king, and he speaks on behalf of Joffrey. Disobedience is a fucking
that is treason. A little jumping ahead. She tells that to Meryn, but it's all good. Yeah, so it's at this point that Sandor rides through the gates on Sansa's horse, her behind him just clutching tightly, and he asks her if she's hurt.
Are you well, Lady Sansa?
Because blood was running from a gash on her scalp.
Yo, and there's a deep gash on her scalp, apparently, because the Hound will say that she's bleeding out. Like, she needs some fucking attention.
Yeah, and she says that the Hound killed a man who who pulled her from the saddle, cut off his arm, and then she's like, oh, shit.
Oh, shit.
And Clegane sets her on the ground, and his cloak is all torn and stained, and Maester Franken hurried up forward to help Sansa, and the Hound tells them that 4 men held Santigar down and took turns bashing his head in with a cobblestone.
Poor Santigar. So... just a quick moment of silence.
R.I.P.
Because, like,
respects.
This was the first reread where we mentioned Santigar.
He
was
like, Robert's master at arms.
Yo, and he was the guy that gave some information to Ned.
Yep.
He led them to the forge where Gendry was, I believe. Mm-hmm. Like, he was a pretty good guy, a master at arms in King's Landing. So, good on you, buddy. Anyway...
the Hound never saw Lawless, though.
Yeah.
And so then, suddenly, there are shouts of fire.
So before that, I thought it was very fun that the Hound was like, where's my horse?
Oh, yeah.
And Tyrion was like, well, it was riding by us, but then I kind of lost it. He's like, it better not be fucking hurt, or I swear to God, you'll all pay. Fuck yeah, man.
Yeah, the Hound and his horse. Yeah. So shouts begin to pick up of fire in Flea Bottom. And Tyrion's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Right,
but his similarity to Cat here, he thinks Flea Bottom can burn. It just can't reach the Guildhall, the Alchemist.
Yeah, he thinks about the worst case scenario.
The way Catelyn thought of these useless mouths, we don't need Flea Bottom. It can fucking burn to the ground. Fuck these people. Mm-hmm. We just can't have it reach the Guildhall, which, again, is that upper class of just, it's not even
it's that Varys outlook on things where they're just pawns, they're just pieces to play with, and we don't need them especially from Flea Bottom.
Yeah, so Tyrion tells Bronn to see to the fire and by no circumstance allow it to reach this guild hall of the alchemists and the wildfire. The Hound he sends as well, but the Hound says he's only going to find his fucking horse.
Not because he was commanded, and there's a moment where Tyrion sees a flicker of fear in his eye,
it's like the fire,
and thinks it to himself. He's like, oh shit, which I think is going to show the exhaustion and the adrenaline and all that kicking into Tyrion is forgetting that kind of thing, because that's a pretty obvious thing, like that. Especially Sansa, she is very aware
Tyrion
of the fire.
handles shit here.
And that's what I'm saying
is through those gates hot.
I think
adrenalized.
And he kicked the shit out of Joffrey
just handling, giving out orders.
No, absolutely.
Go take care
and that's
of this.
I think important to know, especially considering what Jacelyn Bywater is going to tell him in a little while.
Yeah,
is how efficiently and effectively he assisted in getting these fires taken care of, helped prevent the war, staunch it as best he can at the moment, or the rioting and all that. But
Tyrion tells the 3 remaining Kingsguard to command people to return to their homes. Anyone on the street after the last evening fell bell will be killed. And Sir Meryn begins to argue, and this is where Cersei reared up like a viper. The hand speaks with the king's own voice, and disobedience is treason. And so Tyrion just kind of fucking rubs his head and just...
So Boros and Meryn share exchange a look.
Yeah.
And do you think that's because of the fact that normally she's so venomous towards... So speaking of venomous, reared up like a viper.
Yeah.
Perhaps like a Salazar pit viper. Just wanted to say that that's a new snake, and maybe that's the kind I'm picturing, because it's the same color green as her eyes.
Cersei
and the emerald.
Slytherin.
Slytherin. Makes sense to me.
Duh.
It makes sense to me. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I think the look is because they're like, oh, she's actually...
Wait, she's backing him? Like, we are... What the fuck?
But he walks away and lets her just rage on them. And
he heads to his tower.
Finds 2 stone crows guarding it, and immediately is like, yo, go find Shaga. And they're like, he's sleeping. And he's like, so... fucking wake him.
Go get him now.
And they're like, no, you don't want to wake Shaga. He's a fucking... But they do.
Yeah, eventually. And Shaga comes over pretty much immediately, as Shaga will.
And when he does, Tyrion's like, yo, go chill with Shay, protect the fuck out of her. I may or may not be there tonight.
Yeah, like, I'm not... I'll try, but definitely by tomorrow. Definitely tomorrow.
So come evening fall, the city is still in turmoil, though the fires were quenched and most of the mobs were dispersed. Tyrion realizes he's not going to be seeing Shay tonight.
Definitely not happening.
And it was Sir Jacelyn Bywater who delivered the butcher's bill. It was dark now, and when the servants had come to light a fire and some candles in his quarters, Tyrion had roared and sent them running, his mood as black as his chamber, and Bywater said nothing to lighten it. I just really like that description of him just brooding in the dark of like, fuck.
And then Bywater showing up to tell him that the dead are as follows. The High Septon, fucking done.
Ripped apart as he squealed for his gods.
Sir Preston Greenfield.
R.I.P.
Dead. Aaron Santigar.
R.I.P.
Poor Aaron. Lawless was found raped by almost half a hundred men. 50 plus men.
Found wandering naked on the streets.
Just fucking... Holy shit, man. Like, dude. Fucking poor Lawless.
Yeah, dude.
Shit, man.
Fuck.
Like, I would take Santigar's head being bashed in any day
Pulp
over
my skull.
Like,
yeah,
holy
dude.
fucking shit.
The Gold Cloaks found her wandering naked. Tyrek was still missing, as was the High Septon's crown.
Yeah. 9 Gold Cloaks were slain as well, with significantly more, half a dozen more wounded, and nobody bothered counting how many had died in the mob.
Nope. Priorities.
Fuck.
Tyrion wants Tyrek found dead or alive. His uncle was always kind to him, and the boy he's just a boy. He gives no fucks about the High Septon's crown.
Yeah, not one, which if you remember was described in detail back at Ned's beheading, I believe, when we saw the High Septon's fucking obnoxious crown.
We get, I think, basically what Tyrion was hinting at earlier at his own informers. We get Bywater, who's like, yo, you always told me I can be straight with you. Can I be straight with you? And Tyrion's like, yeah. And
dude.
He's like, but the kettle's simmering, like, and it's about to fucking boil.
Bywater is Davos.
Yeah.
He is 100% Davos for Tyrion here.
There's thieves and murderers everywhere. No one's safe in their homes. The bloody flux is spreading down through some soup in one of the streets. Before, it was muttering, and now there are just open talks of treason. Like, shit has to give.
People
Tyrion's like, you don't trust your men, like, you know, to help out with this, and he's like, I don't trust really anybody. There's a couple good ones in there, but it's a crapshoot. Like, we have so many
most
people
of them,
here.
Because Janos Slynn, he tripled the numbers of the Gold Cloaks, the City Watch. But the recruits were so filled now with brutes, sots, cravens, and traitors that you couldn't tell the good from the shitty ones. And so he goes on to say that, like, even the guards are among the people in King's Landing. Like, they live with them. That's what they're eating. They're doing the same kind of shit. They feel the same way as you guys. And they're starting to think that, you know, maybe Stannis should be king. And putting all the blame on House Lannister.
Yeah, Tyrion even tells him, I know that it's fickle. If the walls are breached, we're lost. I don't expect them to fight once the walls are breached. I need them to fight to prevent that from happening. But yeah, he says, most of my men are small folk. They whisper that the gods are punishing us for the sins of House Lannister.
Yeah, and so finally,
for the murder of King Aerys, for the butcher of Rhaegar's children, for the execution of Eddard Stark, and the savagery of Joffrey's justice. And Tyrion's like, they hate my family? That's what you're saying?
He does say that, but then he goes on to say, specifically, though, they fucking hate you, Tyrion, most of all. And Tyrion's like, hold up.
The injustice was like to choke him.
Dude, and like, at this point, yes, he has the high sense, you know, the sense of entitlement as the High Lords do, but it's funny that he really is one that's doing... He's not a good person. Again, we obviously have discussed he's going to be villainous.
He needs to check his privilege, but he's trying to help.
He does more for the small folk than a lot of the other people currently.
That's why Varys, if Varys is as true to the small folk as he claims, would be working with him, because he sees that
he is making attempts to better the people, or make a better place for them.
But it is said that Joffrey has evil counselors, and they blame you most of all. They say you filled the city with sellswords and savages, that you were threatened by Janos Slynt's honesty and so had him exiled, and threw gentle, wise Pycelle into a cell when he dared speak against you. Some even claim you want the Iron Throne for yourself. And Tyrion's just like, fuck duck, man.
Motherfucker.
So his hand coils into a fist as he tells Bywater to leave him. We both have work to do.
So, and yeah, before we go to this next little bit, I just want to point out how much this feeling of hatred towards Tyrion directly correlates with how his trial is going to go for the murder of Joffrey.
Oh, yeah, I mean...
And how they just rise up against everybody hates Tyrion.
It's funny how many people...
See, that's what we need as the next sitcom, is everybody hates Tyrion.
It's funny how many people have reason to hate King's Landing as a whole, and Tyrion is one of those people.
Yeah, Tyrion,
because he's trying to save it and calm Joffrey's savagery and Cersei's fucking tomfoolery and actually make it a city that you can live in and work in and exist in. It'll still have classes, there'll still be flea bottom, but you'll at least be able to eat a bowl of brown and not fucking die of the bloody flux.
So next, I think Jon Snow needs to come down and take a lesson from Tyrion in brooding. Because he takes a minute before he calls Pod, because he can't stomach the sight of his food.
Fuck no.
And he is just sitting there berating himself, man, just talking mad shit. Like, maybe my father was right.
Well, I think it's great that he's disgusted at the thought of food, and that's what the whole riot's about.
It was
his
food.
Dinner goes untouched,
exactly,
and he has that option of just being like, no, I'm not eating tonight. But that's what the whole fucking bread riot was about.
Right.
And there's that privilege again of like. It's still the little interaction, the little things that the High Lords don't even think about.
Oh, I'm sick of what's happening.
I'm so disgusted by what happened today.
He's disgusted by the people's hatred towards him right here, I think. And that leads him to pushing aside this full meal that he actually has.
More of that capping.
They only came at you because they're starving, and you're refusing food. Bronn technically says, let it go bad.
Yeah, Bronn eats it. But yeah, disgusted at the thought of eating, he calls Pod, tells him to get Varys and Bronn, and he thinks that his most trusted advisors were a eunuch and a sellsword, and his lady is a whore. What does that say about him? And public image is important in these times, this sort of society, and Tyrion nailed it.
Look at Bill Clinton.
Valid. I did not have sexual relations. But anyway, Bronn shows up and insists on a fire.
Just straight bitching.
Yo, fuck this shit. We're not sitting in the dark.
We're not brood lords.
This is not a My Chemical Romance concert.
Fuck this.
So he gets one blazing by the time Varys arrives, and Bronn immediately starts eating some of Tyrion's dinner, which at once Tyrion found amusing, but now finds galling. And he fucking calls him on it, and Bronn's like, he
basically is like, check your privilege, bro.
City's starving. It's a shame to let it go to waste. You got any wine? And Tyrion tells him, you go too far. And Bronn says, you know what, motherfucker? You don't go far enough. Like, ever wonder how easy things would be if maybe Tommen, the younger Sabi Lord, was in charge instead of the dipshitted, dick-headed fuck-all that is your nephew?
He straight up says it. Whatever, you can't deny that almost 90% of that city, at least, has thought of how much better it would be if poor little adorable Tommen was... Granted, they forget that Queen Regent Cersei would then kind of take charge. I think
this is Tyrion's version of being oblivious to it, not wanting to look at something.
That's the ignorance, like Cersei does
refuses
the city
to see
stuff.
Joffrey what he is. Tyrion didn't want to look at this as an option because it is his nephew.
It's his nephew, and it's good that he doesn't see it because but this is the first ties to
flipping back. I think that's why he connects the children with Jaime so much, because it's this. That's where I'll love them from. I'll love them as my brother's children, not as Cersei's just that monster. Chill crept down his spine when he realizes what Bronn was hinting at.
And he tells him, I could have your head for saying shit like that. Like, what the And he's like, fucking come at me, bro. Like, do something about it.
Friends, Varys says. Quarreling will not serve us. I beg you both, take heart. And Tyrion sourly is like, whose? I can think of many tempting choices for hearts I'd like to take.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the chapter. So Tyrion's pissy and brooding.
I have a quick question about the way that Varys says that there. My friends, don't worry, take heart.
Yeah.
Is that him saying, like, take heart because he's about to deliver them good news right there? Like, take heart. Because this is something fishy or juicy I've got for you. Like, don't worry about that. Because guess what happened?
I was feeling like Varys had something to do with a woman coming out in the street with her baby.
Yeah?
I really do. Yeah, he is so, I don't know, prominently absent for this until...
What, you think he was her?
No,
I don't think he put himself on the line.
I don't think he put himself straight there, but I feel like... yeah, I feel like he had something to do with it, or the fires in Flea Bottom, something to exacerbate the situation and make it a little worse. As we know, at the end of Dance, he's willing to do that. He's willing to make the city a little less stable.
Do you think he threw the dung at Joffrey?
That's any one of those inciting incidents could have been it.
I bet he threw the fucking shit at Joffrey.
Or had a hand in the crowd, had a little bird in the crowd to throw the dung. Yeah. Whatever. I feel like Varys had a hand in inciting it for this reason, to make it volatile, where now Joffrey just got the beatdown he needed.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it'll wake Cersei up. So I think he's saying, take heart, like, something's going to give here.
Figure it out. Yep.
But that's just a guess on mine, because I was thinking about that a lot too. Like, what is he saying there? Like, there's hope on the horizon. What hope is he offering? And I think it's just that this bread riot thing was good. It's good that this broke like this, because now we can start addressing some shit. But you got an inductee?
No, you go first.
Mine's Varys for that.
One.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like he was fucking conspicuously absent. Like, why isn't he there to see Myrcella off?
So that's my why I'm having trouble picking my inductee right now, is because where the fuck was that son of a bitch during all? Why wasn't he there to see Myrcella off?
And like, why is it that Pod can find him so easily? Like, he goes and gets Bronn, gets Bronn to come. And then Bronn gets there first, but like Pod went and found Varys, no issue. So if Varys like clearly isn't indisposed, why wasn't he at Myrcella, seeing Myrcella off? So what was he doing, if not inciting the fucking bread riot? So Varys, because I think he had a hand in it.
Yeah, so I remembered who I had picked. Yeah. And so because it's his last chance, Aaron Santigar.
Yeah, I was going to give it to Aaron Santigar
and
too.
So, because he had no, we'll give it to him. I'm saying that not as an inductee, but we'll bring in Lawless just for some time to recover and recuperate. Especially since we have, a Maester in the house with June now.
Yeah.
She can kind of tend to Lawless's wounds, or, send her under.
If she doesn't mind, June,
no
you
pressure,
take whatever role you want. But absolutely.
Yeah, so Aaron Santigar, I'll stick with.
I really liked it because we made a point from book 1 to pay attention to him, and I really have.
So to follow his journey,
the Bread Riots is where he goes.
He's a pretty good dude throughout them.
And the High Septon, no one really cares about because he's just a piece of shit. That's a gluttonous, which I really like the imagery that Martin puts, where the High Septon of the gods, the voice of the gods, is this gluttonous.
Yeah, so we do also have a wonderful inductee from France.
From France. It's from Julian.
What's up, French Rye?
He said he loves this chapter. The riots in the show were great. It did the scene where Sansa almost got raped. It was cool, but the revolt of the people hasn't been truly used as a background noise in the books. I feel like it's going to take its due importance, and I love it. Also enjoyed how Tyrion doubted himself a little at the end, plus the conversation with Bronn is awesome as usual. Inductee, the Hound. And fuck you, Boros and Meryn, by the way.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Fuck you, Boros and Meryn. Fuck you indeed.
As Cersei says. Cersei's fickle. It's a fuck you now.
Fuck you, Cersei, too. But fuck you, Boros, and fuck you, Meryn. I almost went with the Hound myself for...
The horse love?
Just fucking being off... because I'm all for the animal love, especially with
I just love that he was like, yo, where's my fucking horse?
If my horse isn't all right, I'm somebody's getting fucking booted in the face. I swear.
Love it.
So thank you, Julian. We love it when you write in. We appreciate it as always. Make sure you get your inductees to us.
Hell yeah.
Julian has. Next chapter we're reading
Davos 2.
Is Davos 2. It's a great chapter. It's a really good one. So they're going to be, Stannis and Davos will be meeting with Sir Courtney Penrose.
I have missed you, Onion Knight.
Yeah, and then they're going to have some chitty chats, and it's going to be good news and bad news.
So send us in inductees for that, and then we're moving on to Jon's next chapter, which I'm unsure of the number of, but get us inductees for that. We will catch you on the next one.
Valar Dohaeris.
Peace.